am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm the void.
I'm not familiar with the term panpsychism, by the way. I guess it's Sugar Rat who in Discord asked me about how to look into what I think about it, and maybe I will. But from my understanding, panpsychism, I guess, is the idea that either consciousness, I haven't figured out yet because the article's so freaking long and confusing, but I haven't figured out yet if panpsychism is talking about consciousness being separate from the material world or if it's one thing. I think consciousness is everything. I mean, that's it. You can meditate and sit still long enough and see that everything's moving on its own. So I think consciousness is everything. I don't know if that's panpsychism or anti-panpsychism. I'm not sure. But we're always apt to change our mind. What's up, Susie? What's up, Sir Wolf? And any of you lurkers out there. But I want to get back into Muldoon, man, because I can't stop thinking about this guy being in the roaring 20s, investigating the out-of-body experience. And yet it does seem a little creepy. Some of the texts that we were going through yesterday seems like this guy's, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to insult the guy because the guy's intelligent as hell. He's had plenty of OBEs, obviously. But I wonder if he's like kidnapped people. You know, the way he talks about subjects and humans are almost like we're a bunch of rats. But at the same time, it's another fascinating text. And trust me, I've been digging, looking for some more, a whole lot more. So he goes on into this next part where he talks about the astral line of force, and I think he gets into the human body. But I personally, when it comes to, I know we talked about the astral cord yesterday. I personally have never experienced it, witnessed it, or whatever, and I promise you guys, on every full-fledged, aware, out-of-body experience that I have, you know, where I'm not struggling with vision or trying to get somewhere or whatever, when I get back into that full-fledged state of the OBE, I will be checking for this damn cord. I don't care if it's a spider web or some kind of illusion or an etheric cord or whatever. I'm going to be looking for it. You know, subjects getting out of body. I don't see it. Now, if all these claims are vindicated, then the controversy lies only in the opinions of the people that originate them. So the truth, he says, is that the cable can extend from any of the several vital centers of the body. Well, isn't that convenient? One well-known authority on the subject who ranks second to none and whose words carries much weight is a staunch adherent to the belief that the astral cord finds its point of contact at the solar plexus of the physical body. But if that's the case, then where does it join our astral body, if that's true? Does it center at the solar plexus of the projected body? And surely, if it does, then the conscious astral projector must find himself in a clumsy condition within cord activity range. And I would say the same thing, right? If it's connecting to our solar plexus, then we would see the sumbitch. I mean, it'd be all over the place. We'd be tripping over it, you know? So he goes on to say what his experience has revealed is that he's never found the cable making contact with the physical body at the solar plexus, but he has observed it to do so at the front side and back of the head. Now, I think we were in the after show chat yesterday, and Tamishi said that a lot of times this stuff could probably be based on what we believe, and I think that's true too. So with him, the astral end has invariably adhered to the medulla oblongata region of the phantom. He goes on to say, I make the suggestion, however, that the experimenters who hold to the solar plexus point of contact use suggestion to that effect while developing. And be that as it may, the reason why the astral cable fastens at different spots of the physical head is because of the position of the physical body at the time of projection. So apparently, I guess this thing moves around. I don't know. But the astral and physical bodies coincide in whatever way the physical body lies. So will the astral. So if the physical is facing upwards while lying down, sometimes the phantom can be projected and will upright with cord activity range when negative factors set in, like emotions or outside noise or something. So he's got a picture of, you know, like if you're laying down, you start projecting out of body and then you become vertical in the air. So your body's laying down like this, you project out and you become vertical, kind of perpendicular. Then he says usually the cord is at the head. Now, sometimes the phantom can be projected and will upright with the cord activity range when negative factors set in, emotions or noise, or maybe if you got to pee, I don't know. But the phantom will be pulled backwards into the horizontal through the air to a position directly over the physical and then slowly sink down into it. Now, the astral cable will thus come out of the physical at the front of the head between the eyes and fasten onto the phantom at the back of the head, the medulla oblongata region. He says this too. He goes, I might add that this is the ideal position for projection. But on the other hand, if the physical is facing downwards while laying in the horizontal position, I guess if you're laying on your stomach, the astral body will emerge facing downward. So it'll rise, you know, with your back out, right? I've felt that too, you know, laying on my stomach and just kind of rising out the back, right? So the astral cable will thus circle from the medulla oblongata of the physical directly over the top of the head to the medulla oblongata of the phantom or your etheric double. And if you're conscious when a projection from this position occurs, you will feel the astral cord circling over your head in the astral, and it will feel like a piece of soft hose in which there are regular pulsations. I had the following experience several years ago, which illustrates the point. Man, this is getting really weird. I got to tell you, because I didn't feel any of that stuff, or I wasn't aware of it, right? I just didn't feel that. So he says, the first perception I had in this experience was that my head was drawn downward until my chin rested upon my chest. You know, and that something was thumping me on the top and back of my head. And an instant later, I was awake in the astral and found that my head was drawn downward. My chin was resting upon my chest. The thumping in my head was due to the pulsations in the astral cable. And in this condition, I was lying in the air, just under the ceiling of the room. I could not move voluntarily and seemed to be smothering. I was lying upon my chest physically and was likewise facing downward in my astral body, and thus it was the astral quote, line of force that pulled my head downwards. And I could feel it resting upon my head from that point, and then down, and then over the top of my head, as plainly as it had been a piece of a garden hose. So he felt something pulling him down, fastened to the back of my astral head, and pulled over the top, forcing my head on my chest and pulsating the whole time. What's up, Grant Gets Out? What's up, Sir Wolf? So this experience proved conclusively to Muldoon that the astral cable is always attached at the medulla oblongata region of the astral body, for there never would have been a better time for it to have been attached anywhere else, yet it made contact at this point, which on this occasion was not an ideal arrangement. It does make you wonder if we're evolving spiritually too. Like maybe in the 20s, everybody did have astral cords, but now we're evolved to the point where we don't need them. We don't know this stuff yet. We really don't know. So for several moments, I stayed in this position, and then I noticed that I was beginning to turn over on my side, and I thought that my head would be twisted from my body. The turnover movement continued until I eventually found myself lying upon my back in the air. This once accomplished, the controlling power began to move me outward and downward into a standing position. Just why the ruling intelligence found it necessary to turn me over in the air before completing the projection, I do not know. On interiorization, when he was coming back into his body, the same process took place in the reverse order. I was pulled first from the upright into the horizontal position to a point directly above my physical body. This move took place while I lay face upward in the air. I was then turned over slowly, dropped face downward into the physical mechanism, which lay face downward upon the bed. So I guess however you're laying, he's saying when you get pulled back into the body, that's how it's, if you just kind of, I guess, surrender to it, it's going to turn you over if you're on your face. If you're on your back, it's going to turn you over on your back. Now, he said, if this experience could be considered typical, it would appear that lying upon one's back is the ideal position for projection. I have no idea if any of you guys have ever experienced this. I was in control. When I get out of body, I'm usually in control of it most of the time, especially if I'm doing like hemisync or some type of audio guided OBE experience. I can definitely control the whole thing. It doesn't feel like, something's moving me around. However, when I'm in like hypnagogia, or I'm about to fall asleep, or I catch myself in that state, I can feel something. I don't know if it's pulling me around, but I feel myself kind of either rising or sliding or kind of seeping out or whatever you want to call it. What's up, Deacon? So the cerebrum, divided into two hemispheres, is the frontal portion of the brain within the cranium. The cerebellum lies behind and below the cerebrum. The two are connected by a short stalk known as the midbrain. The solar plexus, or abdominal brain, is the abdomen, just behind the stomach. It is completely composed of material similar to that composing of the other two brains. So, the medulla oblongata is a bulbous continuation of the upper end of the spinal cord, extending into the skull and lying below the cerebellum. It is a peculiar arrangement of division strands of the ganglia connected with the two neighboring vital centers. How does he know all this? Is he, cutting into bodies? Maybe, probably just read some books or something. It is well known that within the medulla oblongata are located certain nerves which have control over the functions of respiration. I leave it to your judgment whether this would not be an ideal spot for the astral line of force to connect with and thus deliver the force of respiration. Well, who knows? Everybody I've talked to hasn't even seen this thing that you're talking about. So now he gets into, this is where it gets kind of mad sciencey, right? So he's going to get into the pineal gland. Situated within the brain is a peculiar organ, the pineal gland, which until recent years was a source of mystery. Well, in the 1920s, I imagine it was. Although the Orientals have long held that the gland has significance in relation to the occult, the pineal gland, aside from its physiological importance, is now recognized by many Western students of physics, as well as by the Orientals, I guess, is that physics? That's psychics, sorry. Yeah. Western students of psychics as well as Orientals as being connected link between the physical and spiritual worlds. Swami Bhakta Vashita states that the pineal gland is a mass of nervous substance which is found located in the brain, in a position near the center of the skull, almost directly above the extreme top of the spinal cord. It is shaped like a small cone and is of a reddish-gray color. It lies in front of the cerebellum and is attached to the third ventricle of the brain. It contains a small quantity of gritty particles, a sand-like substance, which is commonly known as brain sand, and it derives its scientific name from its shape, which resembles a pine cone. The Oriental occultists claim that the pineal gland, with its peculiar arrangement of nerve cell corpuscles and its tiny grains of brain sand, is intimately associated with certain forms of transmission and reception of waves of mental vibration. Yeah, it's the thing in our head that we shake like a salt shaker until we start tripping. So Western students have been struck with a remarkable resemblance between the pineal gland and a certain part of the receiving apparatus employed in wireless telegraphy, the latter also containing small particles which bear a close resemblance to brain sand of the pineal gland. Huh. Now you can read Manly P. Hall. Manly P. Hall talks about all this stuff too. So the pituitary body, situated in front of and below the pineal gland, is another organ regarded as having an occult significance. There's a connecting link between the two bodies. The pineal gland and the pituitary body, over which it is claimed a subtle force operates. Dr. W.H. Downer says on this subject that, quote, molecular motions in the pineal gland cause spiritual clairvoyance. But to make this clairvoyance illuminate the field of the universe, the fires of the pituitary body must unite with the fires of the pineal gland. And this union means that the sixth and seventh senses have become as one, or in other words, that the individual consciousness is so indrawn that the magnetic sphere of the highest mentality and the highest spiritual sense is conjoined. No way to prove that, though. I think if you do like mantras long enough, you'll start rattling your pineal gland too. But so considering the important functions of any or all of these vital centers, one would be perfectly safe in asserting that the astral cable can deliver the, quote, breath of life into any one of them while the phantom is projected, and that the energy would be properly distributed, for after all, the nervous system is in tune, one part with another, throughout the entire physical mechanism. Some people have found that that concentration upon the pineal gland, properly concentrated thought, of course, will facilitate the projection of the out-of-body experience, and there is little doubt that a line of force will be created at the spot upon which the subject concentrates. So the force is not created by the physical nervous center. The physical nervous center is operated upon by force. I guess what he's trying to get at is he's trying to prove that where he thinks the astral cord comes out, where your third eye is, that maybe talking about the pineal gland is going to, I guess, solidify his theories on that. Now, none of the vital bodies mentioned in the foregoing can create the force which operates through them. They're but distributors or rectifiers or transformers, the complicated mechanical arrangements that the energy of life works through and upon. So because the physical body can be destroyed, that in no sense destroys the force behind the body any more than breaking an electric bulb would destroy the energy operating through it. That's a pretty good analogy, I think. So it's interesting to know that there have been people who have had portions of their brains taken out without any ill effects. Gillet, in his work, From the Unconscious to the Conscious, cites many such. The surgical operations have been performed upon soldiers in France during the war. Physiologists do not believe that the vital energy, or consciousness, sensibility, motivity, can exist apart from the physical mechanism, believing that the material body itself creates the energy. I guess that kind of goes back to the whole panpsychism question. But the main reason for their beliefs is that it cannot be proved that the physical body does not create its energy, but it cannot be proved that the physical body does create its energy either. Therefore, there's no foundation for that belief. The physical body itself cannot even hold the energy of life, and that energy being held in the astral condenser and poured through the physical during projection by means of the line of force, running to a vital center of the physical mechanism. To discuss astral phenomena, even life itself, without discussing the energy which is behind it all, would be like building a house without a foundation, like discussing electrical appliances and ignoring the force which operates them. So perhaps it's never occurred to you that the energy you're using is cosmic. It's present everywhere, that it's not created by you, but is attracted by you and condensed in your astral body, which, as you've already learned, does its recharging during sleep, and therefore has an important bearing upon astral projection. You must realize also that food and diet constitute an important factor in the phenomenon of astral body separation. The ordinary belief concerning energy is that it is created by the body, that to eat so much food will produce so much energy. Now, if this idea were true, we could easily substitute food for sleep. And the minute we felt ourselves becoming tired, weak, or enervated, we could just simply eat more food and thus never need sleep. If this were true, the more food we injected, the more energy we should create. But scientific investigators have found that to stuff, the invalid only makes this condition worse. What does that mean? But scientific investigators have found that to, quote, stuff the invalid only makes this condition worse. So food is material, like the physical body, and builds up the body because the cosmic force operates upon it, not because it produces energy in itself. I don't know about that, man. That's a hell of a statement, because he's pretty much going against all of science when he says that, right? I mean, a calorie in itself is a measurement of energy. So, but I mean, what are they basing that upon? Could be something to look into. If you look into, so he looks into Dr. Lindler's view on energy. So he says, let us now turn our attention for a few moments to what Dr. Henry Lindler, world famous food scientist and exponent of nature cures, has to say in the answer to this question: for what reason do we eat and drink? And then he says this: the majority of people would reply, when everyone knows that from food and drink we derive our strength. Are you so sure about this? Do you really believe that the large amount of animal heat and vital energy which the human body manufactures, radiates, and expends every 24 hours is derived from a few pounds of food consumed in the course of the day? Any hard-working laborer or athlete spends an enormous amount of power and energy every day. A healthy individual may continue to do this for several weeks without taking any food whatsoever. So the best proof that not all the heat and muscular energy of the body are derived from the combustion of food materials is furnished by a long fast. Of late years, since fasting has become popular as a natural remedy, many thousands of people have fasted from 4 to 10 weeks at a stretch, and the majority of these are marathon fasters and report but slight loss in physical energy. Many claim that they are stronger at the end of the fast than at the beginning. The loss of animal heat is negligible. While in some cases the temperature declines a fraction of a degree or a whole degree, in the majority of cases it remains normal. So we verified this in hundreds of cases under close observation in our institutions. Yeah, but when you stop eating food, doesn't that just turn into fat, though? Right? I mean, like, do they even consider that? Doesn't your fat turn into an energy source? So if you stop eating food, then your body's going to like switch over, I would think, into some ketosis form and start using protein and fat, which you have in abundance in your body for energy, which when it turns into energy, a lot of people feel better anyway. So, I don't know. This regulation of animal heat, regardless of the surrounding temperature and within certain limits, regardless of the quantity and quality of food consumed, is one of the greatest mysteries of our wonderful human organism. If foods were the only source of animal heat and working energy, fasting for a long period, or if it was, then and working energy, fasting for a long period would be impossible. So the temperature of the body would sink below normal just soon after the commencement of the fast. And it may be said that while abstaining from food, the body lives upon itself. Yeah, that's what I just said. That it consumes its own tissues. But this, however, does not account for the production of all the heat and energy expended during the fast. I don't know about, see, like I'm not a scientist, so don't, this is Muldoon saying this stuff and this doctor. What's up, Mythoclast? So continuing on this subject, Lindler says, if they, or the foods, do not give life, what then are the functions of food and drink in the economy of the body? All they can do is to furnish the materials to keep the system in such a condition that vital force can manifest in and through it. The inflow of life force into the cells and organs of the body and its free distribution by way of the nervous system depend upon a normal or healthy condition of the organism. Anything and everything in natural methods of living and of treatment that will help build up the blood on a normal basis, that will purify the system of waste and morbid matter, that will correct mechanical lesions and harmonize mental and emotional conditions, will ensure a greater supply of life force and its derivatives, strength, vitality, resistance, and recuperative power. So in other words, I guess they're saying, the more normal, healthy, and perfect the organism, the more copious will be the inflow of vital energy. I mean, I can see where they're coming from on this. Especially if you're like an athlete or if you're working two jobs or you're going all the time and you're fasting or you're not taking in food and yet you seem to feel great. You seem to have a ton of energy. Well, number one, you're giving your digestive system a break. I mean, I don't know if they don't even bring that up in here, which is, everything needs an oil change every now and then. So let's see where this is going. Now, I think this is more about the energy of the astral body and where it comes from and all this stuff. So when such exhaustive researchers as Dr. Lindler must go outside the body to find the source of vital energy, is it not time for others to recognize this omnipresent force working all about them and through them? It is impossible here to go into the study of foods and dietetics, whatever. The study of food and its effects upon life constitutes a science in itself. But plainly, different foods bring about different conditions in the body. Some seeming to supply more energy, some less, depending, no doubt, upon the way in which they attract or repulse the vital energy, which is cosmic, and which is held by the astral body, or the condenser of cosmic energy. You notice that's like the fifth time he's called the astral body the condenser of cosmic energy. It's probable that the negative and positive charges in foods and some unknown matter affect the astral body. So the physical body is built up by the foods because the basic elements of matter constituting both foods and flesh are united. But the energy is manifested in and through the astral counterpart. So it's not manifested in the body first. There is an occult doctrine regarding food, according to Carrington. Quote, it is that a vegetarian diet tends to make the molecules of protoplasm shorter and more sensitive to shorter wavelengths. It is quite conceivable that it should actually do this. We know that a bar of iron becomes magnetized when all the molecules of its structure are, as it were, pointed in the same direction. Now, if you strike a magnet of this type a sharp blow with a hammer, or heat it red hot and allow it to become cool again, it will be found to have lost its magnetism. Now, what's happened here? Probably the molecules of iron, which before had been uniform in their polarity, are now pointing in all directions, and hence the energy which formerly played on or through the bar of iron, and one continuous unbroken stream, is now broken up and playing in 1,000 different directions. So hence the iron will no longer be a magnet. It is possible that something of the same sort takes place in the body, and that its molecules, when finely attuned by rhythm and acting in unison, may allow a flow through the body of energies which would otherwise be limited or altogether restrained in their action. And this is merely by way of suggestion, which one may take for what it may be worth. Mr. Prescott? I like to say Prescott. That's the more redneck version. Mr. Prescott F. Hall And a most interesting article in the Journal of the American Society of Psychical Research says a vegetable diet tends to loosen the vibrant matter of the astral body, and vegetables, fruits, and prunes make the blood able to attract spiritual power. Come on now. There's no way to prove that, but people do that. Like, especially ritual people, like ceremonial magicians and stuff, if they're going to do like a really long working, they'll fast and stuff and just eat like nuts and fruits and things like that before you do it. Carrots are also beneficial. Nuts especially. Peanuts are bad, especially near the time of sitting for development, as they tend to make one's atmosphere of one color. Raw eggs are favorable. Raw eggs, like rocky raw eggs. Liquids are favorable to development. Fasting often helps the liberation of the astral body. But didn't he say in the beginning of the book, man, that your diet and any of this stuff doesn't really matter? Fasting does help, though. I mean, because you just feel better. Now, you'll notice that Mr. Hall has stated that liquids are favorable to development, yet he does not state in what they are beneficial, nor to what type of development. I must take exception to this, and shall shortly point out that in developing astral projection, abstinence from liquids constitutes an important positive factor. However, Mr. Hall is correct in his assertion that fasting often helps the liberation of the astral body. So it's enough to say that food is one of the most vitally important factors of life. But it is as necessary to eat the right kind of food as it is to eat at all. I know that, in stating this fact, I shall arouse the ire of many spiritualists who think along the lines of mental healing and Christian Science. Their motto believing, quote, leave the food question alone, the mind will take care of that. While healing by the power of the mind is not by any means an untruth, the idea that one could ignore the food question is ridiculous. Food is as necessary as breathing. Why not stop breathing and let the mind take care of that too? That's a good point. So the question is, do these people eat? If so, why? They will answer that they eat because it's necessary to sustain physical life, but that it makes no difference what they eat, just so it be labeled, quote, food. Now, if it be necessary to eat at all, then it's necessary to eat properly. I wonder if the mental healers could eat dirt, and by using their minds make it nourish their bodies. Would they say dirt is not food? But many of the things eaten by us every day belong to the same category. For instance, it's not generally known, but many investigators know that much of the so-called whole wheat that's sold in America is little less than ground corn cobs. Concoctions sold for, quote, whole wheat sometimes contain as much as 3/4 of the stuff hogs that refuse to eat. Yeah. Dr. Ward and others have pointed this out after investigation. Yeah, hogs don't refuse to eat a whole lot of anything either, you know. Mythoclass says, you should read A Man's Higher Consciousness by Hilton Hotema. It's a really good read. Talks about how we don't need for what the heart's in the way, something to need food to be healthy. So if it's, anyways, hogs won't eat whole wheat. I didn't know that. I used to feed hogs all the time, but I didn't. You can just feed them slop and whatever. They'll eat it. If it's true that the mind can take care of the food question, why not just let the mind take care of eating too? There's just one standpoint in this matter. If it's necessary to eat at all, it's necessary to eat the proper elements of food. Eating, breathing, and sleeping are natural laws. We cannot ignore a single one of these without suffering ill effects, not in this life, at least. But Muldoon believes that fasting actually does increase the inflow of cosmic energy. So, but of these three sources of energy, sleep is the most important. And it may readily be seen that if we could eat, drink, and breathe properly, we should sleep less and still retain the needed amount of energy. And that if we slept more, we should not require the unusual or the usual amount of food if we slept more. So this is one of the reasons why fasting is, and this is one of the reasons why fasting is promotive of astral projection. What were you just reading? Was it The Unfortunate? No, that was a while ago. When the fast is in progress, one of the secondary sources of energy is cut off. And in order to retain in the system the needed amount of energy, the astral body at night is thrown further out of coincidence to the physical body in order to collect a greater charge of cosmic energy to balance the loss. So that's why people can undergo long fasts without losing energy, and in some cases actually increase their energy. Now, some may say, how is it that while taking a fast, the patient sleeps no longer, yet retains enough energy to make up for the deficiency? In other words, how can the subject collect more energy while fasting through sleep than while not fasting, and still sleep the same length of time? The answer is that it does not depend upon the length or duration of sleep, but upon the distance of separation of the astral and physical bodies during sleep. Remember that the astral body discoincides from the physical during sleep for the main purpose of recharging, and the further out the physical it emerges, the more easily does it condense the cosmic force to recharge. So thus we can see the relation of fasting to astral projection. The more profound the sleep, the more inactive the body or more incapacitated, the greater will be the distance which the astral counterpart will move out. That is why in the hypnotic sleep, the subject can derive as much benefit in a short time as in a much longer period of natural sleep. The Orientals grasped the significance of this cosmic force a long time ago. They called it Prana, and Swami Bhaktivinoda defines it thus, quote, "It is a subtle form of energy permeating the universe, but manifesting in a special form in the organism of the human being. The subtle force, or prana, is held to be capable of being transmitted from one organism to another, and it is held to be the energizing power by means of which many forms of occult and magic phenomena can be produced. Prana is very much akin to the human magnetism of the Western occultists, and the properties attributed to the latter are really those which the Orientals for centuries past have held to be among the essential properties of prana. So at least there's found a practical agreement here between the Oriental, the Eastern, and the West schools of occultism, respectively, in spite of their differing terminology. The cosmic energy has many faculties, and one of these is the healing faculty. Every ill that is cured by cosmic energy. Medicine, chiropractic, Christian Science, and every other healing method depend upon the prana to bring about the cure. All that any curative method can do is to assist. That's it. So what he's saying is that no matter what the curing method that we take for our health, whatever illness we have, it's only assisting that cosmic energy or prana. So when ailing, if you take a fast, you not only assist nature in clearing the poisons from the body, but you automatically increase the inflow of cosmic energy or the curative energy. America's foremost authority on yoga, Hereward Carrington, states in his Higher Psychical Development that the Hindus have a whole mythical system of physiology. They claim that there are certain energy carriers, or nadis, as they call them. There are 72,000 of these, and each of them has innumerable ramifications. If you take a scalpel or a knife and dissect the human body, you will not find these centers, but the Hindus say, they are not composed of physical matter, but of astral matter. Therefore, not having any astral senses, you can't see them. These energy carriers are the storage centers and the chief means of circulating the prana. Oh, you're curious about what book this is from? This is from a book from the 1920s by Sylvan Muldoon. I think it's called Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvan Muldoon. Again, in the same book, we find doctors say we need more sleep. About 8 hours is what they say usually. And if you sleep 8 hours a day, you spend a third of your life in sleep. It seems rather a waste. But the Hindus said, cannot we get rid of some of this waste? Cannot we reach a state in which we no longer require sleep? By following out these exercises, this system of diet and living, which Mr. Carrington explains in detail, they were enabled to cut down their hours of sleep a ton. And in practice, we find that the curve of sleep runs thus. We start with what we call the threshold of consciousness. It sinks when we fall to sleep and then gradually rises again, so that immediately after you fall asleep, you're at the deepest point. And from that point, it is a gradual upward curve until you awaken. So the question is it not possible to deepen that curve so that you enter into a deeper sleep and require less of it? The Hindus think they have found a method of artificially deepening sleep and not spinning it out so long, and we in the West have partially done this by means of hypnotism. All this has a very important bearing upon the subject we're studying, astral projection. I believe this is the first time anyone has ever put forth a claim that the astral body discoincides the physical body during sleep for the purpose of recharging, and that's it, and that the depth of sleep and the amount of recuperation depend upon the distance between the astral and the physical body. The greater the distance of separation, the freer the inflow of cosmic energy or prana into it. So doesn't this all show us convincingly that the weaker the individual, the more adaptable he is to extensive projection of the astral body? So he's saying, in spite of what other authorities maintain, that morbidity is a positive factor in projection. For his part, he can't see what reasons can be advanced to refuse this statement, although, he says, I readily admit that it is far more dangerous to attempt extensive or prolonged astral projections with an ill-functioning physical mechanism. Do not form the idea that I'm advising you to produce morbidity intentionally. God, I hope not. I am merely trying to make it plain how perfectly ridiculous is the claim that good health is a necessary factor in the art of astral projection. If this were true, that good health is necessary, the nearer one came to death, the weaker he became, the harder it would be for him to die or permanently astral project. But common sense shows that this is not true. Another common belief is that we bum up our energy. What we really do is externalize our energy, or the neuric energy externalizes from the astral body. In the individual of nervous temperament, this externalization is very pronounced. Remember, he said that too. Nervous people can get out pretty good, actually. So, in the individual of nervous temperament, this externalization is very pronounced, and that is the reason why the individual is neurotic. Can you imagine, like, every neurotic person you talk to, you're like, man, I bet you could really astral project. I mean, they probably can. I believe it was mentioned that this externalization of energy can be measured by certain instruments. So, if you could cut off the excessive externalization of energy in the neurotic individual, the nervous temperament would just disappear. So it is easily seen that persons of a nervous temperament require more recharging during sleep that individuals of other temperaments don't. Now, one set of bodily exercises and postures will cause the cosmic energy to externalize, while another set of exercises and postures will cause the energy to interiorize. So it's been discovered that fear itself, will fill the bloodstream with poisons almost instantly. It is claimed that for this reason, a person becomes weak when they're in the grip of fear. Yeah, it does. And it almost, sometimes if you get like shocked with fear really fast, when that adrenaline hits, you can taste it in your tongue too. It feels like you drank antifreeze or something. Now, I'm going to tell you why fear weakens. And this is the first time anyone has made this claim. But fear externalizes the neuric energy from the astral body, automatically weakening the victim. Nothing causes externalization of nervous energy as completely and as quickly as fear. If it were true that energy is burned up, there could be no condition of instantaneous innervation, such as we have when we're in the grips of fear. But energy is omnipresent and indestructible. It's not created, nor is it burned up. It is internalized and externalized, and it is condensed in the astral body. When projected in the astral body and conscious one can observe this neuric energy. That is, he can see its color and condensation in the bodies of others. It is luminous, like white light. It is this energy which gives the astral body its phosphorescent appearance. It is the scintillations of this condensed energy which trail along behind the etheric double or the phantom when the latter is moving at a great speed, or intermediate speed is what he called it earlier. So although the glow of the neuric energy can be seen throughout the entire body, it is condensed mostly in the center of the body. It's very luminous in the center of the body, right at the solar plexus region. I've noticed this many times, and Andrew Jackson Davis used to say that he always saw the nervous system in the interior of the body as though it was full of light. So it's my belief from astral observations that the great storehouse of condensed energy in the human being is located at the solar plexus region. Now, we have physiological indications too that this is true. And I told you that fear causes instantaneous externalization of neuric energy. And true enough, we always feel the effects of fear in the solar plexus. Yeah, makes your heart like, oh, my heart dropped into my stomach. What's up, Sudi? What's up, Domek? Domek got a fancy new truck. Loving it, brother. We'll figure out how to put it on a t-shirt. I think I know how, actually. The astral projector, when conscious, can see this neuric energy when he's conscious in his astral body. So it's interesting to know that spirits usually speak of mediums as, quote, lights. Now, how fasting aids astral projection. Now, since we are speaking of energy being cosmic and not produced wholly by the foods that we eat, let us recall that Christ said of food, quote, man does not live by bread alone, end quote. Christ was known to undergo long fasts, and there is good reason to believe that he did do this in order to produce spiritual phenomena, perhaps to aid him in traveling in a spiritual body. And we've learned one of the reasons why fasting tends to liberate the astral body, and to avoid any misunderstanding, we'll review it. Sleep, food, and breathing are the sources of bodily energy. Sleep is the main source. For as Schopenhauer said, sleep is to the individual what winding is to the clock. Food is secondary source of energy, and thus, when a fast is undertaken, the secondary source of energy is shut off. The astral body, the condenser of energy, always discoincides from the physical during sleep for the purpose of recharging, and during a fast must take in, condense, a greater quantity of prana to make up for the deficiency caused by the fast. The further out or away from the body the phantom or the astral is, the more energy the astral body gathers, the more easily it recharges itself or is recharged. Hence, during a fast, it moves out further into the stream, which means nothing more than it projects further than the zone of quietude or normal sleep. So this is but one reason why fasting is a positive factor in projection of the astral body. There is another reason which will be discussed under what quoted suppressed desire. So I know where he's going with that, I think. So it has often been observed that sometimes a blow or whatnot, which produces unconsciousness, or a punch or a kick, I guess, you could say a blow to the head that produces unconsciousness, will cause the victim to feel more energetic after regaining consciousness. And when people get knocked out, they always say that too, right? I mean, I feel like I slept for hours. But the reason is obvious. The astral body moved out some distance into the cosmic stream of energy, and here is another observation I've made. Consciousness, whatever it is, uses up energy. Consciousness, merely being awake or being aware, uses up energy, just as exertion uses it up. You can sit still or lie motionless and be conscious, and you use up energy. And here's something else I wish to impress upon your mind. Although the astral body recharges when it moves out of the coincidence with the physical or separates from it, unconsciousness is necessary in order to reap the full benefit of the recharging. So this is why we're not aware of it, or we forget it, or we're just strictly unconscious when this happens. Now, if you project the astral and retain consciousness all the time, you will not recharge the astral body. Unconsciousness is a necessary factor in conjunction with separation. I've noticed many times that after experiencing an entirely conscious projection, I felt still innervated upon recoinciding with the physical. In fact, more so than upon retiring. And on the other hand, I have found that when the projection was unconscious, or when I merely caught myself in the act of getting out of body and therefore knew I'd been projected, I always felt invigorated. Sometimes even to the extent that upon awakening, I actually believed I could fly off the ground. So it's a very common experience. It is very common to experience a dog-tired feeling after an OBE that has been conscious, accompanied by a headache in the back of the head. So I'm convinced, for my part at least, that spirits in the lower planes must become unconscious. For consciousness uses up energy, no matter what one be in the astral body or in the physical body. If you're conscious, you're using more energy. So there's strong evidence to support the contention of many occultists via that sleep or unconsciousness is not brought about by a condition of the material body, but is caused by some agency outside the physical body. Such theories as cerebral hypersemia, cerebral anemia, and all other material influences must be discarded. They do not cause sleep. Neither does the withdrawal of the astral body, for even that entity sleeps and can be unconscious and projected, or it can be conscious and projected. Now, consciousness and astral projection is a big topic, because I think that's something that, most people don't realize. Yeah, who was talking about this the other day was, man, I don't dream. I said, well, do you smoke weed? Well, yeah, I smoke weed all the time, but I don't dream. Like, if your body really needs to recuperate, your energy, let's just say your energy needs to recuperate, it's probably going to be harder, to be conscious in the astral body, because you naturally don't want to be. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that the nature of things doesn't want you to be conscious during that, because it needs to recharge. Even your astral body doesn't need to be aware. You don't need to be conscious, because it needs to recharge. And if it needs to recharge enough, you probably won't remember any of your dreams. Not saying don't smoke weed. I recommend smoking weed, especially every now and then. It's good for you, or however you want to put it in your body. In my opinion, What time is it, man? We got to do the radio thing. But when we come back, I want to get into your question too, Sugar Rat, about panpsychism, but I do want to talk about consciousness during astral projection, actually being awake and being aware, and how important that is, and go through what Muldoon has to say about it as well, because I think it's important. We got to do the Fringe FM thing, though. Grab a drink, grab a smoke, kiss your partner, take your doggy for a walk, whatever. Just a few minutes. We'll be right back. Take the cat for a walk.
Inside my head, there's a little place left for you. What do you know? What do you know? And all I want is to find out what you're going through. What do I know? Maybe the silence is dangerous.
adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm gonna take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Bumper stickers are a fun side
Did he just
hustle
say
with low-cost
karaoke?
investment that has built-in advertising to attract local customers in parking lots, rallies, gatherings, conventions, venues, and more. You could potentially sell these bumper stickers on consignment to local businesses, tattoo parlors, head shops, or any other independently owned store that might gear toward the fringe. Bumper stickers are great gift-giving ideas for friends and family. Also, a way to wake up your fellow travelers on the path without having to waste energy in tiresome debates. No car? No problem. Bumper stickers will stick to just about anything with a semi-smooth surface. Go to www.justbsme.com and get your bumper stickers today.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our 2 signs compatible? Each month at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just
tell
go
me
to
that's something live.
TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
What is this? Let's go. I gotta go. Thank you.
Someone digging in my head, someone fooling out my bed. Is it rapture that he wants?
Alrighty, welcome back to Lighting the Void live here on Fringe.fm. It's been a minute since I've done the radio shout out stuff, hasn't it? Like where I've said hi to you people that love radio. It takes a special person to still like radio, and I'm one of them. Sometimes I don't want to go on a tangent, but sometimes I listen to old radio stuff all the time, even Orson Welles and all of that mess. See what we got. Miami. Just a few shout outs. I'm not going to say all of them. I ain't got time for it. Looks like Chicago, Toronto. And I got it zooming in here because I can't see them all. Canada. New York. Is it, which part of New York is that? Is that upstate New York? No, that's New Hampshire. What's up? That's a new one. What's up, New Hampshire? All right, so we're gonna get into being conscious in the astral body versus being unconscious, which is an important thing, I think, if you really want to experience it, because according to theory, we're always out of body, right? So it's just a matter if we're consciousness or we're consciously aware of it or not. And what's up, Lisa? Lighting the Void Radio, you have convinced me to make the midnight coffee. Dude, I have to get some. I slept because I worked this morning. I did the on the job. I didn't sleep last night, so to make sure that when I got up and went to work that I would get into some sort of cycle. And then so I went to work, got off work, came home, crashed out, but didn't get enough sleep. So I was definitely unconscious in my astral body and could really use some coffee right now. Yeah, me too. Should have made some during break. But so consciousness during astral projection. All right. Although in the majority of cases of astral projection, consciousness is chiefly a matter of chance most of the time. That is, it seems to be chance whether or not we're aware or not. It does seem that way. Like, man, I was this time or I wasn't. Like, we're not in control of it. It just happens that way, you know. But there is little doubt in Muldoon's mind that schemes could be worked out or influences brought to bear which would have some effect in bringing full consciousness to the projected entity. Of course, it's possible to be conscious from the very beginning of the OBE state, but this is not usually the case, and in many projections in which I have become conscious, I've analyzed the causes which I believe aroused consciousness. Now, some of these causes are not unlike those which bring about consciousness while the bodies are in coincidence with each other. So there are things that bring about consciousness while your astral body is with the physical. But unless consciousness be present from the very beginning of an astral projection, it will first begin to manifest itself in the form of a dream. It seldom comes suddenly, but slowly. When the phantom is projected, a dream always precedes it, and it works itself out. It works its stuff out in the dream. So if the dream corresponds to the action of the phantom, consciousness is more likely to appear. That is why dream control is such an important factor. So he's going to tell a story of an awakening which illustrates this point. So you'll see the difference between dream consciousness and real consciousness. I can't wait. Joe, what's the wildest experience with astral plane you've ever personally experienced? Oh, I can tell you, I've told it a million times, but the wildest experience that I've ever had was being shoved back in my body by blobby, Rorschach shadowy figures coming halfway out because I was like I was peeling myself out of body every day because I'd gotten in that groove, man, that astral projection groove. I thought I was Constantine in the flesh. I just didn't need the cat, you know what I mean? But this day, long story short, I came about halfway. I peeled myself about halfway out and I felt stuck. And I became frustrated. And you can feel the will, what Muldoon calls the will that wants to move, even though the physical body is incapacitated. And my will happened to get a little angry. I guess you could say frustrated. I wasn't mad. And I said, I command you to release me by light and life. I don't know where that came from. I don't know whose voice said it because it damn sure wasn't the voice you're hearing now. It was a deep, resounding, massively reverberating voice that said, I command you to release me by light and life. And when I was doing that, the moment I said that, these blobby things, like just instantly, they were hovering above me the whole time. I just didn't really notice them until I said that, and they moved. And when they moved so fast, it was like they just clobbered me and pushed me back in my body. And I remember just, waking up like, what the hell was that? That was pretty wild. other than flying around in my yard, that was pretty wild. So here's Muldoon's experience, right? So I was dreaming that I had entered a massive hall with a high ceiling, skylights, and colored windows. It was a large room when I first entered it, but after being within it for a short time, I noticed that it had changed. It was now a small room, and there was but one small hole in the center of the ceiling through which I could see light. As I remember the dream, the room was about 12 feet square, and I stood on the floor in the center of the room, looking up through the hole in the center of the ceiling. That was the only opening through which I could escape, since the doors and windows which I had first observed had just disappeared. So there I stood. Looking up, wondering how I was ever to escape, and there was no way in which I could climb up to the window, for the walls were perfectly bare, and there was nothing in the room which I could stand. So there I stood, looking up through the hole in the center of the ceiling, and it seemed that I stood for some time, when suddenly I wondered if I could not fly through the hole. I began to rise into the air, but as I was passing through the hole, I became caught fast in it. Half my body, from my hips down, see, same thing, remained inside the room, and upper half was outside. There I was, stuck, fast. I could not move either way, and at this point I began to awaken and realize what was taking place. I found myself projected. Yes, it was the same old story, awakening from a dream and finding myself outside my body. But the interesting thing was that the position of the body, or the astral, corresponded with the position it held in the dream. I was just halfway through the ceiling of my room when I became conscious. Oh. That is, I had moved upward directly over the shell. I had uprighted and was half above and half below the ceiling on awakening. This is merely one of the many awakenings I've experienced when emerging from a dream, and I have noticed at every time that when the dream corresponds to the action of the etheric double, or the astral body, real consciousness generally appears. So when the dream corresponds to the action of the astral body, it will always cause the body to exteriorize. That's pretty trippy. So think about that. He had this dream that like a hole was closing in a room, so he went to fly through it, then he got stuck. Half of his body was stuck in this hole in the dream. And then once he realized he was in a dream, he awoke in his astral body, in his etheric double that separates from the body, that I think is way more fun to play in than the dream world. But I don't know what Darius says about caffeine. I don't know. I barely have time to even get on YouTube or listen to anybody else. So when he woke back into the etheric thing, he was stuck in the ceiling. Now, this happened to Robert Monroe a couple times too. And my favorite thing that happened to Robert Monroe is when he was, when he felt a guy breathing on his physical neck. And he, like that guy he said in the book that was, he could feel the stubbles of his, beard, and he was just going, breathing, like he thought some dude was laying on top of him, but it was his etheric double, actually. That's pretty creepy, too. So here's another example in which noise participated. So before going to sleep one evening, I'd been reading of an Indian massacre, and the leader of the band of Indians was named Little Priest. And after going to sleep, I began to dream. I was in a clearing in the wilderness, and the clearing was quite large, about 60 feet square. I had a gun with me, and I was passing through the clearing in the wilderness, and I suddenly saw Indians poking their heads through the trees and underbrush all around me. I raised my gun and began to fire at them, first at one and then another. It was continual, bang, bang, bang. Is that what it sounded like? It seemed that the gun I was using made a very loud noise, usually loud, making me tremble every time I discharged it. Yet I could not stop shooting, or the Indians would get me. I have that same dream, dude, but they're not Indians. They're like, I have a recurring dream that people keep coming in my house and I'm in a gunfight, and I usually kill all of them. I destroy them. But there's like this one like end boss, kind of like the end boss at the end of a level that always gets to me. And I'm either out of bullets. One dream I had about it, the gun jammed. Another dream that I had, that he was in the room the whole time just waiting for me to kill everybody. And then a lot of times I end up getting in like a fist fight or a tussle with him. No one ever wins. I wake up pissed off and frustrated. I have that dream like once every 2 weeks now. Anyways, back to get rid of my narcissism. Back to Muldoon's dream. So yet I could not stop shooting or the Indians would get me, but that awful bang, 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 how it went through me. And next I saw the chief of the Indians. It was Little Priest, and he was coming through the clearing towards me to kill and scalp me, and I was afraid. So I turned the gun towards him and fired. 3 shots, bang, bang, bang. But I could not see. I could not seem to hit him, and he was getting closer and closer. And as he approached me, I dropped the gun and began to cringe back, but the banging of the gun continued. It was growing more distinct, and I was forgetting about the Indian chief. I was conscious. It was a windy night, and the screen door outside was slamming back and forth in the wind. Bang, bang, bang. And I found when conscious that I was projected in the astral and standing near my shotgun behind the door of the kitchen. But that wasn't everything. There stood an Indian spirit, and he said, "You call Little Priest. You called me Little Priest?" Ooh, that's creepy. So when he became conscious from his dream, he didn't wake up. He was in his astral body by his door, by a shotgun, and the screen door in his house was banging. And then there was like a Indian priest in front of him. These are but 2 examples of how one becomes conscious when projected in the astral body. I could cite many, many more, but that would take a book as large as this one. Yeah, that's crazy. I want to hear it. I could cite many, many more, but that would take a large book as this one. Considering only the last case Ten I had been with in court activity range, when this banging and fearful Indian fighting commenced, an interiorization would have resulted because of the emotion. So you can readily see how consciousness is faintly functioning in a dream, and that it is but a step from a dream to complete awakening. Yeah. I've still not done that yet, though, man. I haven't came to my astral body from a dream ever. So what does Darius say? I thought you did his course. No, when you guys were talking about Darius Wright, I thought you were talking about some other guy I interviewed that I think his name is Darius, but it's not the same guy, because I looked it up last night with Tamishi, and it's not the same guy at all. I can tell you who the other guy is that I had on my show that I think is just, I don't know if he's just as good as who you guys are talking about, but I'll tell you his name as soon as I pull up the Discord. Because he's usually in there. So there is a dream world, and when you're dreaming, you're not really in the same world as when you're conscious in the physical, although the 2 worlds merge into one another. While dreaming, you really are in the astral plane, and usually your astral body is in the zone of quietude. So I hope that makes sense now, because this is like the 2nd or 3rd time we've explained it, but it does happen, right? When you fall asleep, your etheric double separates from your body, right? And when man, I can't find this guy. I'll find this guy in a second. It separates from your physical body. So that's your etheric double. That's the thing that I'm projected into, right? Once you fall into a deeper state or a dream state, that etheric double doesn't leave. It just stays there. And then another body, or the 2nd or 3rd state, I guess Monroe calls it, goes off into the dream world. And you can be conscious in that world too. So it's like 3 different levels of projecting, which I think is fascinating too, because in the mysteries, there are 3 levels to the mysteries, right? That we've talked about in the occult, right? You have the earth. Actually, it's 4 if you count the earth, but you have the earth, the moon, the sun, and the stars. So your etheric double is kind of like your moon body. And then you have your solar body, I guess, that goes out, and then you have your star body. That could just be bullshit, though. It could just, I mean, it's a coincidence to me, but it doesn't really mean that it means anything, you know. I swear to God, this guy's name was Darius. It's a guy that I had, is a black guy that was on my show a long time ago, and it was a Dan Lopez was with me, and he teaches the out of body experience too. And I thought that's who you guys were talking about. What is his name? Anyways, once he pops up on Discord, I'll let you know, because he usually is in there. All right. So there is a dream world. So when you're dreaming, you're not really in the same world as you are when you're conscious in the physical, but the two worlds merge into one another. And while dreaming, you really are in the astral plane, and usually your body is in the zone of quietude. The distance of separation has nothing to do with it. Once detached, whether slightly or remotely, you're in the astral plane. Now, perhaps this is the first time you have ever realized that you enter the astral world every time you go to sleep and separate from your body. But the fact that you stay in the zone of quietude does not make you any less in the astral world. When out of coincidence with your body, you are attuned with or in harmony of vibration with both your astral and your physical worlds. You can be conscious partially, or you can be conscious, partially conscious, or unconscious, either within or out of coincidence with the physical body. So in a dream, you're partially conscious, and you can be discoincided with the physical. Your mind is thus, you actually are, most of the time, discoincided with the physical, or your etheric double is. But your mind is thus a receiving station for the vibratory waves, either waves carrying with them thoughts, sounds, influences, music, voices, and whatnot of two worlds. And it is through the reception of these impressions that many dreams are instigated. That's kind of like, have you guys ever had a dream where you can hear the music that's on the radio while you're in the dream? And it kind of gives you this like nostalgic music video vibe while you're in it. I get what he's saying, and that makes way more sense. Like, I think he's right about this. Yeah, so your mind is thus a receiving station for the vibratory waves, ether waves, so to speak, carrying with them thoughts, sounds, influences, music, voices, and whatnot of two worlds. And it's through the reception of these impressions that many dreams are started. So when you fall, or actually when you rise to sleep, so to speak, if the conscious mind is locked up partially, it functions in conjunction with the subconscious, and the material for dreams is obtained through the thoughts or noises or etc. of these two worlds. So if the conscious mind is locked up tightly, you don't dream. Or he says, you do not remember having dreamed at all. But when you're asleep, your vibration reception ability is greater than when you're physically awake. So when sleeping, you're not unlike a medium, but being unconscious, you do not realize it. So if partially conscious, you are open to the vibrations of two worlds. And if you awaken from a dream in the physical body, your vibration reception ability is attuned to the physical plane. And if you awaken from a dream while projected in the astral body, your vibration reception ability covers both astral and physical planes. Makes sense. Makes a hell of a lot of sense, actually. So I'll give that to Muldoon. That's the first time I've ever heard anyone explain that. And that explanation right there makes up for so many damn things that's happened to me and explains it. Perfect. Jesus, Sudi, you got me worried about what this guy's name is. He's not like famous. He's not super famous, but he's a good coach. Anyways, I'll probably find it after the show, and I'll drop it in Discord, the guy's name that was on the show. So the instigations of dreams cannot be credited to any single cause. The influences which bring them about are so numerous, cryptic, and subtle that it is doubtful whether we shall ever understand the true significance of nocturnal fantasy. But we can, by using the knowledge we have gleaned, use dreams to promote astral projection. Now listen, that explains everything, but it doesn't explain the knocks. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard the quote knocks. Let me see if I can find this article. Where the hell is it about that? That we've talked about it a million times. Where is it? Oh, that's not it. Hold on. Let me come back here. Sorry, YouTube. Anyways, so I've had everything that he just said explains some of the craziest dreams I've ever had. That is the best explanation I've ever heard. Especially what is it called? The false awakenings, where you think you're awake and you're not. You're not awake. You know, same thing. I used to have this dream where I'd wake up and I'd hit my phone and like, shit, I think I'm awake, but I'm not. And then I would wake up again. Okay, I'm really awake. And then I'd pick up my phone and try to use it. Didn't work. Shit, I'm still not awake. That could explain definitely the false awakening, but the knock, I don't know about that. I've had 2 or 3 instances, and I know some of you have had this dream too, where maybe it's like right when you're falling asleep or you're in the middle of sleep and you just hear this, you know, it doesn't sound like a fake knock. It's like someone's at your door. Just, that's happened to me so many times, probably 4 or 5, enough that it makes my heart speed up. I jump out of bed, I run to the door, nobody's there. Well, the first time it happened, I thought someone was pulling a prank on me. I did, right? But then it kept happening. We did a couple of shows on this with Dan too. Sometimes I think spirits travel between these 2 worlds and they can figure out how to knock in those 2 worlds where it actually, you can hear it in the physical. Daryl E. Berry Jr. There you go. That's his name. That's who I thought you guys were talking about. That guy's a good coach too. So when you guys were saying Darius, that's who I thought y'all were talking about. He's been on the show. Now, yeah, I was looking in Discord because he's usually in there and I don't see him. Hey, that guy's a good out-of-body coach too, man. Let's see. Jessica says, I hear music in the dad. I hear music in the day-to-day when none is actually playing. I used to hear my name being called, not so much anymore though. I used to hear that too. I used to hear, like, as I'm falling asleep, my grandmother used to say my name a certain way. She would be like, Joseph. That's how she'd yell for me if she needed me. Joseph. And sometimes I'd fall asleep and I'd hear that Joseph. I'd wake up and think, oh, my grandma needs me. But when I come into consciousness, I realize, oh, she's not alive, you know? So anyways, back to this. Damn it. See, I got on a rant and I forgot where I left off on here. So in a dream, you're partially conscious and can be discoincided. Your mind is thus a receiving station for the vibratory waves or the ether waves. We read that. When you rise to sleep, if the conscious mind's can be locked up partially, it functions in conjunction with the subconscious. And the material for dreams is obtained through the thought noises of 2 worlds. When you're asleep, your vibration reception ability is greater than when you're physically awake. When sleeping, you're not unlike a medium. Okay, we read that. So if you awaken from a dream in the physical body, your vibration reception ability is attuned to the physical plane. And if you awaken from a dream, okay, here's the thing that he just said. I'm going to put this in the chat that made sense. If you awaken from the dream in the physical body, your vibration receptibility is attuned to the physical. And if you awaken from a dream while projected in the astral body, your vibration reception ability covers both astral and physical planes. That's why the 2 worlds get mixed up like that. That's why weird shit happens to us in those dreams. For instance, if you're in the hypnagogic state and you start to slip into those 2 worlds, but you can still see this world. But have you ever done that? Like, you get in the hypnagogic state, you start to slip into this other world. Oh, dude, like one of the freakiest things happened to me when I did that once. I was sick, like really sick, and I took some like cough medicine that knocked me I couldn't sleep because I was just so achy. I think I had COVID or something. And, or before COVID came out. It was not my ex-girlfriend, but the girlfriend before that. Yeah. And I was talking to her on the phone. And I was like, oh, man, I'm about to fall asleep. And she's like, well, go to sleep. Just go to sleep. And I said, I can't help it. I could feel like something pulling me. My body was so tired and weak from being sick that I couldn't keep myself awake. And it was like pulling me under, you know. And I told her, I was still like mumbling to her on the phone. I was like, I'm being pulled under. I can't help it. And she's like, it's okay. Go to sleep. And then I started to hear voices like I was in a cafeteria, just like you're in a restaurant, voices everywhere. And yet my blurred vision, I could see, you know, everything in the physical realm, but I could, it sounded like I was in a really large cafeteria that was full of people just chatterboxing, and it started freaking me out. And so I tried to wake up, and I was like, I can't. I hear voices. This is wigging me out. And my eyes were like shaking because I was trying to wake myself up so hard, right? And she was like, it's okay. Just go to sleep. I was like, this is the freakiest thing that ever happened to me. That, or back then it was one of the freakiest things that ever happened to me. That right there is what he's talking about. One of the, you know, you're kind of in between two worlds there. So the dream state lies between complete consciousness and complete unconsciousness. So you can see that once projected in dreaming, it's but a step into complete consciousness. The astral body has well been termed the dream body many a times. See, I knew it. People call the dream body astral traveling, and they're really, and I was calling the etheric projection astral traveling, but they're two different things. For it is in that body that we dream, even though we may be in coincidence with the physical or but a fraction of an inch outside of the physical body or completely separated from it. So instigation of dreams cannot be credited to any single cause, but the influences which bring them about are so numerous, cryptic, and subtle that it is doubtful whether we shall ever understand the true significance of nocturnal fantasy. But we can, by using the knowledge we have gleaned, use dreams to promote astral projection. That's what I usually do, Deacon. I put all that stuff on the tree and then realize, oh, it's the same thing, you know. So concerning dreams, there's only one rule which one must remember. When the action of self in the dream corresponds to the action of the astral phantom, the dream will cause the phantom actually to exteriorize. The skeptic may say, well, how do you know that? If the action of the self in the dream corresponds to the action of the phantom while projecting, it will cause projection? Like, how do you know that? But there's one answer to this. Experience proves it. That's my favorite answer. My experience proves it. I know it. And until you do it too, until you void walk and do it yourself, you're not going to know it. Although it takes the reader but a couple of seconds to read that rule, it took the writer several years to discover and prove the rule to be true. Now, accepting this as true, all that it is necessary to do so is to be able to dream true, which can be done keeping in mind the route which the phantom takes and molding the dream in accordance with it. This is a different kind of level of lucid dreaming, right? So naturally, the dream must be of an aviation type or a flying dream. You can dream true, but unless you understand the route taken by the phantom and apply it to the dream will have no pulling out effect upon the astral body. It is only reasonable to suppose that a properly applied dream should do this. The mind is partially conscious during a dream, and the dream acts as a suggestion to the subconscious will, the power which actually moves the etheric counterpart. It tells me why I ended up doing my astral projection when I'm not conscious. It's so hard to navigate. Yeah, man. You know, I've even projected into my etheric double, moved around my room, and I couldn't see shit. And I felt like I was just being pulled either back to not just pulled back to the physical body, almost like there was something kind of pulling me back the whole time, but also like it was trying to pull me back into sleep too, you know. Now recall the fundamental law of projection. When the will becomes possessed of the idea to move the body. Now we're going back to the law of the OBE, right? So when the will becomes possessed of the idea to move the body, and you have two coinciding bodies, you have your physical and your etheric double, and the physical body is incapacitated. That means it becomes paralyzed for whatever reason. Can't do anything. But if the will stays the same, the astral body will move out of the physical. So it is the dream proper which gives the subconscious will the suggestion to move the body, and the physical is incapacitated. This makes sense now. So the astral being in the zone of quietude, so that the astral body is pulled out by the dream, which must be of an aviation type. This is why when he was flying through that hole in his dream world and he got stuck in that hole and then he became lucid. Hey, I'm dreaming, right? I'm not stuck in this hole. Half of my body's not really stuck in this hole. I'm just dreaming. And as he became more aware, he found himself in his etheric double stuck in his ceiling, right? So I guess he's about to get into ways that we can like use that to our advantage. So the proper dream suggestion is as certain to project the astral body as a conscious suggestion is to walk, which will start you walking subconsciously when physically awake. It's the same subconscious will which moves the body or bodies as the case may be. So if you ask me, which is the most pleasant way to promote astral projection? And I should answer this by saying dream control. There are several methods of promoting this seeming miracle, but every method must rest upon the same fundamental law. And assuming that someone would like to attempt projection by means of dream control, I shall now give the instructions for doing so. But I'll go into other methods later. But my advice here, however, is that the reader does not attempt any method until first studying the entire contents of the book. Yeah, so you understand the laws of projection. Now, the dream control method of projection. Here we go. So for several nights after you go to sleep, several weeks would be better, watch yourself during the process of going to sleep and try to concentrate your thoughts within yourself and think of nothing and no one. Just think of yourself. Try to keep a close watch upon yourself as your consciousness grows dim. And try to remember that you are awake but still going to sleep. Now, you will catch the significance of this when you actually try it, far more than you do now while reading it. Now, after you have learned to hold consciousness well up into the hypnagogic state until you actually are enveloped in sleep, then you must go a step further and construct a proper dream to hold in mind. Now, while going to sleep, do this. And remember, the dream must be constructed so that you are going to be active in it. And further, it must be constructed so the action you go through will correspond to the route taken by your etheric double when projected, or your phantom. So, what do you like to do? Do you like to swim? Do you like to ride in airplanes? Do you want to go up in a balloon? How about a Ferris wheel or an elevator? Be sure and do in your dream the thing that you like to do. And if you select something that you don't like, the sensation will interiorize you, for it will be unpleasant. So it'll keep you in your body. So do the things which will give you a sensation which you like. And if you become fully conscious, once you are projected, you will like the sensation which you are actually getting from the phantom floating in the air. So this is cool. It's trippy. So this will go a long way towards ultimate success, to have the action in the dream of such a nature that you enjoy the sensation. Now, let us suppose that you enjoy going up in an elevator. Here's the formula that I use. You've already learned to hold consciousness up to the time you go to sleep. Lie upon your back. Think within yourself. You are lying upon your back on the floor of an elevator. Imagine this. Push yourself to the edges of hypnagogia, focus on yourself, and then begin to think. You're lying on the floor of an elevator, and imagine it. You're going to lie there quietly and go to sleep. And as you enter sleep, the elevator is going to move upwards. And you're going to enjoy the sensation of going up as you lie upon your back on the floor of the elevator. Now, it's trembling a little, so get ready to go up to the top story of a large building. Slowly, quietly, it is going up and up. And you're conscious that you are moving upwards. You are enjoying the sensation to the utmost. It is nearing the top story now. It has stopped. You're going to rise to your feet and walk out of the elevator and around the floor of the upper story of the building. Now, you're going to look all around you as you walk around, observing everything. Now you're going to walk back into the elevator and lie down upon your back on the floor. Slowly you're moving downwards, slowly downwards, and now you are lying on your back on the floor of the elevator, on the ground floor of the building. Now, I have stated that this was the dream I constructed for the purpose of... Oh man, I hit a button and I lost my spot. This is cool too. Hold on. I found it. Damn it. That scared me. I paged down all the way. So I've stated that this was the dream I constructed for the purpose of inducing the astral body to emerge from the physical. Now, it is important to use the same dream over and over again. For if you try first one dream and then another, the subconscious will not be impressed with the construction of the dream as strongly as if you repeat the same one over and over each night as you're trying to enter sleep. Have the dream vividly worked out in your mind and hold it before you as your consciousness is slowly diminishing in hypnagogia, and shift yourself right into the elevator, just as the moment of unknowingness comes to you, and the astral body will move upwards in the elevator. It will upright itself above the shell. Just as you dream of standing up when the elevator reaches the top floor, your etheric double will move out of your body just as you are dreaming as you walk out of the elevator. Likewise, on the return, as you walk into the elevator, the astral will move to a position directly over the shell. As you lie down, the astral will resume the horizontal position. As the elevator lowers itself, the astral body will lower itself also. So what he's saying is, he says shit in the most complicated ways, but what he's saying basically is, as you're controlling this dream over and over and over again, if someone could observe what your etheric double is doing, I'm looking at my bed, that's why I'm turned this way, but if someone can observe like you laying there, and as you're dreaming this and going through it, your etheric double is kind of doing what you're actually doing in that dream. So if you're lying on the floor of the elevator in the dream, if you could see what's actually happening above your body, your etheric double will lie down like it's in the elevator. And as you get out of the elevator and walk around, your etheric double will move upright. It's so creepy, but it will move upright and kind of look around and walk around. Still just kind of be hovering about your body somewhere. Same thing, right? So if you do this enough and then you become lucid, you'll find yourself out of body or in the astral body, outside of your body from that dream. Now, the dream, it's the same thing as sleepwalking, like he was talking about earlier. The only reason why we sleepwalk is because what he calls somnambulism. The etheric double and the body are being moved by the unconscious will, not just the etheric double, you know. Now, the dream is a suggestion to your subconscious will that the will acts accordingly. You should be able to remember the dream totally after awakening. And another advantage of this method is that the astral cable does not annoy one as it does when a projection is induced by other methods. Well, I don't even know about the cable thing. So if one can project oneself by dream control and move some distance away and then become conscious, one should never know that cord activity range exists. But the big problem lies in gaining consciousness when one is projected. Remember that the dream consciousness is not the true consciousness, although you can remember the dream. But the moral of this story is, right, that the proper dream will always project the phantom. It's not necessary to employ the dream that he mentioned. You can make up your own dream, making it appropriate in every aspect, all the sensations. But perhaps you think that you can dream this sort of dream and that the astral body will not do as I have stated. But don't deceive yourself. It definitely will, even though you are not clearly conscious. When I first experimented along this line, I found that repercussion of the body would take place at times, but that was always because I had dreamed that the elevator descended too fast. I found also that I could produce repercussions of the astral body at will merely by imagining myself falling from a high building as I entered sleep. I would hold on to this thought in mind that I was falling from a high building, and soon after going to sleep, I would repercuss. So all you need to do to convince yourself that these things I'm telling you are true is follow the instructions and find out for yourself. Don't sit here and debate in your mind whether it's true or not, or make up your own stories about what you know to be true without actually trying it yourself the way that it's instructed. Right. So if you like to swim, of course, you must plot the dream so that you're in the water, and the water must rise, moving you upwards. And then when you have been, risen to a certain position, when the water floods its banks, and then you swim outwards. Now this follows the action which the phantom takes in astral projection. Many no doubt will say that they could never project their astral bodies into space, that they could never disconnect one body from the other. Yet every time you go to sleep, the astral or etheric counterpart moves out of the physical to some extent, whether it's just a few inches or right above your body or to your ceiling or wherever. And every time you have a falling dream, your astral body has been projected and is returning as you dream of the fall. So the big problem is, how can one project and possess true consciousness while projected? And so I've said that consciousness is more or less a matter of chance. And I've tried a few experiments in which I succeeded in bringing about consciousness, which I do not think would have appeared on these particular occasions, but for the factor which I then introduced. However, now that we're on the subject of dream control, a few more suggestions for dream plots will not be amiss. The main action, of course, is the upward movement and getting the phantom out. So even though the sideways action is not equally realistic, always have the upward movement. So in every scenario that you do this, make sure that you have an upward movement, whether it's swimming, flying, the elevator, or whatever. So always have the upward movement of self vividly pictured in the mind, and if possible, with the body in dreaming, lying in a horizontal position as it moves upwards. Plan your dream as you would plan an important matter, just like you would in your everyday life. The mere fact that it is but a dream does not lessen its significance in moving the phantom. So here's a few suggestions for dream plots, some of which I have taken from Dr. Carrington's Higher Psychical Development. Here's one. See a mental image of yourself in a mirror, your own picture. Construct, as it were, or imagine a mirror about 20 feet behind you in space, and picture yourself walking backwards into that mirror. Another exercise is to endeavor to lift yourself out of your body to a point about 18 inches above your own head, like Baron Munchausen lifting himself by his own bootstraps. You could also imagine that you are steaming out of the body, coming out of all the pores, like you're a steam. Now this steam is collecting just above you and is forming a replica of yourself, and then is carried upward into the air. You could also imagine climbing a ladder. Climbing a ladder is another good exercise to construct mentally. Likewise, climbing a rope. And that's the rope method. We've seen that in several OBE or out-of-body instructors have talked about the rope method too. The writer has had many projections which were brought about dreams by climbing a ladder. Another very good one, for it corresponds closely to the action of the phantom while exteriorizing, is to imagine a tank gradually filling with water. On the top of that water, you float. The object is to find a small hole in the one side of the tank through which one passes out of the tank. However, if the subject has a fear of water and this doesn't sound pleasant, such an exercise is not advisable. On the other hand, for one who likes water, bathing, swimming, floating, a better exercise could hardly be constructed, for the action of the self is correct and the sensation would be actually pleasant. He's going through a bunch of them. Another thing you can do is to imagine yourself whirling. Whirling objects are much used in development work. The dervishes and other Orientals resort to whirling exercises, which doubtless have this fundamental object of loosening the astral body from the physical and in inducing ecstatic states of consciousness as the result. You will recall what I told you formerly, that dizziness is merely a condition of looseness of the astral counterpart. Epileptics usually begin to whirl just as a spell is coming on, often making several complete revolutions of the body before catalepsy begins. The image of a revolving star is used to simulate the activity of the astral body, and concentration upon the image of a whirlpool, the sense of expanding and contracting the body, is also very useful, as is that of being carried along on the surface of a wave. Show me your hula hoop? No, I'm good. One very useful exercise is the image of a cone. The image of a cone in one form or another is quite common in development work because it involves the idea of contracting to a point or expanding from a point, thus passing through a water spout or an hourglass-shaped space. This is a good image used. Construct a cone of circles becoming smaller and smaller, and turning such a cone inside out, or making a revolving disc assume the form of a cone, and then flatten out again into a disc. You could also do holding the image in mind of a flame of fire and endeavoring to identify yourself with the flame is another very useful mental image to stimulate the activity of the astral body. If you could really see an astral body while projected, it would appear like a white flame holding the human shape and dimensions. A good exercise for this purpose is to close the eyes, then roll the eyeballs until they are fixed at a point on the forehead. Manly P. Hall says don't do this, though, because they teach this in occult circles. You remember that manuscript? People rolling their eyes in the back of their heads, not knowing what they're doing, and we have to reteach them all over again. Between the eyes, in much the same way as the yogis do, and make a concentrated effort to gather together your psychic energies at this point. Will, with the whole force of your being, that you are there, your will. And when you have concentrated your full self at that spot, then will that you shall be projected outwards. Will it. Will yourself to be projected outwards in space from that point of departure. Now, this method is a strain upon the eyes, but is one which has been found very effective as the result of numerous experiments and experiences. That answers the question, doesn't it? The question is this. Do you remember Manly P. Hall's, and you can go back and listen to it. I read the short manuscript on video where he says what the ancient wisdom expects from its disciples. So he was talking about students that go out and do occult things that they're not ready for. And he said, it's very common to walk into a room and have a bunch of, I forget how he said it, but a bunch of students sitting in the floor in the dark, rolling their eyes into the back of their heads, chanting certain mantras and things. But what he doesn't say is what Muldoon is saying here. They're actually trying to project their astral body is what they're doing. But in that text, Manly P. Hall says, these students are being led astray. Right. That they need, it's not that they won't do these things or won't have experiences or astral project. It's that they don't understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, according to Manly P. Hall. Because what I believe, what Manly P. Hall was talking about is this whole just astral projection thing that we play with is actually a part of true inner spiritual alchemy and is a spiritual thing that we're supposed to do at a certain level of development. And I think Manly P. Hall agreed with that if you read those manuscripts. But that's, at the end of the day, that's really up for the individual to decide, you know. So here is a very effective developing exercise. Lean back in an armchair in which a manner that you can look directly into a mirror, an actual mirror, which is about 4 feet in front of you. This sounds like that Constantine method, doesn't it? Relax. Rest in peace. Think only of yourself. Now try to go to sleep, watching through partly closed eyes the image of yourself in the mirror. Continuing, you will eventually become drowsy and your head will begin to nod, but just keep watching the image in the mirror. This is an almost automatic way of developing, for as the astral tries to withdraw, your head tends to fall. If the astral does withdraw, the head will drop. Thus you see the state you are trying to attain consciously is more impressive. For the instant you are about to rise to sleep, your head begins to fall, which at once arouses you slightly. Yeah, the mirror one sounds scary to me. The next step is to imagine that you are floating out of the chair into the air of the room, just as you are in this condition, the condition in which your head wishes to fall, in which you are really going to sleep, in which the astral body is really moving slightly out. Now, you have doubtless noticed that the instant a person falls or rises to sleep, the physical body seems to collapse slightly, and that if there be any member of the physical body which is not resting upon something solid, that it will fall as well. Also, that this has the effect of slightly reviving the subject, that falling feeling. Now, this principle can be employed in order to stimulate consciousness as the astral body is trying to withdraw, for it is the withdrawing of the astral which brings about the relaxation. Now, you may have observed that this principle was employed in the last exercise given. It can be employed likewise while going to sleep in the horizontal position. It's interesting to try this and note the consequences. And after retiring, hold your dream construction before you, and at the same time, hold one arm in the chair so that it will fall when you go to sleep. Now, as you enter the hypnagogic state, the arm will begin to sway or to fall, and this will slightly wake you back up. But you must not let it fall. In this way, you force consciousness further into the hypnagogic state. It is not at all unusual when trying this exercise for the subject to feel breathless in the region of the stomach just when the arm is falling, and he will jump slightly to stop it. I've done that 1,000,000 times, actually, even if a certain part of me is falling, Now, this slight jump is nothing less than the slight repercussion of the body. Even subjects most unadaptable to projection can experience what I've just described. They can actually feel the astral moving by following this formula. This is a good exercise to practice, for in order to dream true, you must be able to hold consciousness up to the very moment when you rise to sleep. It is true that some people never have a consciousness of going to sleep. But it's important for this to work that you hold your awareness all the way to the point through hypnagogia into sleep. In fact, most people do not, but until the subject can experience the consciousness of going to sleep, he will never be able to dream true. So it's not difficult to cause the projection of the astral body by the dream-controlled method as you might think. Once the etheric body begins to rise out of the physical, the dream impresses the action of the dream body. Once the etheric begins to rise, the dream impresses the action of the dream, and the action of the body impresses the dream. So, again, once you start to dream, your etheric body is going to mimic whatever you're doing in that dream. So this may be a little difficult to comprehend at first, but it's true. The whole trick lies in the proper start and the proper condition of the mind at the takeoff point. You don't have to start the body. It will start itself as you enter sleep, but you must get into the dream and keep the body moving onward. Some of this stuff does sound scary. I'll agree, Joyce. I'm not going to lie, it does. Some of it does. When is this damn chapter ending? Because or maybe I'll finish this. Whatever. Now, as you enter the hypnagogic state, the arm will begin to fall. It's not difficult to cause. All right. A properly constructed dream is as sure to move the astral body out as the dream of falling is to move in it. The weird thing about this type of dream phenomena is that you dream what is actually happening so far as the action and sensation in the astral body are concerned. So it's natural for the inexperienced investigator to say that the dream might begin by holding true to the plot and then divert from it, but it never will. The dream holds the astral activity true, and being a reality, the dream is true. If you become completely conscious in such a dream, you will usually find yourself in some place corresponding to the place of action which was last seen in that dream. That is, if you use the elevator dream as an example and became conscious just as you were uprighting yourself at the top story of the elevator, you would find yourself in the astral body uprighted directly over the shell or your physical body. I care not how nonsensical this may seem to anybody, but it's the truth, and I have found it to work out time after time. It is a pleasant and certain way of projecting the astral body into space. So here's the summary of the dream-controlled method. 1. Develop yourself so that you are enabled to hold consciousness up to the very moment of rising to sleep. The best way to do this is to hold some member of the physical body in such a position that it will not be at rest but will be inclined to fall the moment you fall asleep. Like hold your arm out in a certain way so when you fall asleep, it will fall like to the floor and it'll scare you almost to waking back up. That way you don't go unconscious totally before you go to sleep. Number 2, construct a dream which will have the action of self predominant. The dream must be of a flying type. It must be a rising or flying type dream in which you move upwards and outwards. This corresponds to the action of the astral or etheric double while projecting. It must be a dream of something which you also enjoy doing. Number 3, hold the dream clearly in mind. Visualize it as you are rising to sleep and project yourself right into it and just go on dreaming. In the dream, for example, the elevator begins to move upward coincidentally with the projection of the astral. That is, you imagine that you are starting upward the very moment you rise to sleep. So the moment you start to feel that I'm going to sleep thing in the hypnagogia state, I start imagining yourself rising upwards in the elevator. That is the bare formula for inducing projection of the astral body by means of dream control, and every part of it must be strictly adhered to. It is no idle fantasy, but a tried and proven method. Of course, as you learn of other methods, you can naturally weave other promotive factors into the scheme of procedure. You will find that if before going to sleep you're reading a story or an article which is fascinating to you, which holds you in suspense, a story of men who work at great heights, or a story of daring aviators such as Bird's flight to the North Pole, you will also strengthen your efforts to project by the dream method. Remember Samael Aumbior talking about how, depending on how well you treat birds, is how well you'll be able to astral project too. So the very night after I took my first aeroplane trip, I experienced a dream of it, and awakening from that dream, found myself projected. Inquiring of others who have likewise experienced their first trip, I found that most of them had an aviation-type dream shortly afterwards, and that several were falling dreams with repercussions. So you see that an impressive activity along the lines of your plotted dream during the day, even though it be but the reading of a thrilling aviation story, it will still bring forth positive results by night. If by following this formula you have a dream, you will remember it, and you can depend upon it that the astral body, the dream body, both participated. However, do not mistake dream consciousness for real consciousness. Now, the next improbable and most difficult step is to bring the dream body to real consciousness after it has been projected, and preferably outside cord activity range. Damn, I got to shut this thing down. It's 11:11, but it's so close to the end of the chapter. I'm going to burn through this. Maybe. Maybe not. A partially conscious projection is a step in advance of unconscious projection, and conscious projection is still a step in advance of a projection which is partially conscious. Either way, the phantom will awaken by chance, and the reason for the awakening being unknown, or else some means must be devised by which you bring true consciousness about. So far as I know, there are but two influences which will serve to awaken your projected phantom, other than the natural awakening. These are sounds and properly applied suggestion prior to the astral projection. The latter is by far the more successful, and the former, sounds, will work only when the phantom has advanced outside cord activity range. Inside that range, the sounds will have the opposite effect and put you back into your body. So it will be found that the more one projects, the more liable consciousness is to intervene of its own accord. And I've noticed also that the place at which consciousness appears once will be the place at which it will intervene again if the phantom happens to cross that spot while somnambulistic in the astral. Why this should be, I do not know. However, I have a theory. Have you ever traveled, say, along a road in an automobile and at a certain place thought of a certain thing? And even weeks later, have you ever traveled over the same route and at that same spot thought of the same thing which you had in mind when you were there before? Of course you have. And as you recall it, it seems to you that the locale or that spot suggested the same thing to you that you had in mind when on that spot before, even though those objects sustain no relation whatever to what you have now in mind. So the same thing happens. So for instance, every time I pass a turn in the road about a mile from where I live, I think of a circus. I don't know why. Yet every single time I pass that turn, I visualize a circus. Now that is just what happens in the astral. If you are somnambulating, and I might say that the astral body has a habit of following the same course time after time, although it does take other courses. But if you do this and you become conscious at a certain place, you will find that if you ever cross that spot again in the astral, you will again become conscious there. There are many, many people who are out in their astral bodies, somnambulating every night, but they do not know it. And I wager that the world would be greatly surprised if it knew how common unconscious and partially conscious astral projection really is. Now, as the astral body moves forward, if it is in a dream state, the environment along its pathway will influence the dream. These are those dreams which are vivid, in which we seem very active, dreams that we have dreamed over and over again may be, and usually are, astral somnambulistic dreams. Now sometimes, during such a dream, the route is not misconstructed very much in the memory, and during the waking hours, should we happen to pass over that same route or a similar one, which the phantom was traversing during the dream, we will recall the dream. And I also think we get deja vu from that too, like we have deja vu experiences like that. But this is not at all. The next time we have the dream, we know that it is a dream, and thus we dream that we are dreaming. Now this may seem difficult to understand. Yeah, it does. It does to me too, But this is the way it works. It's a very strange phenomenon, this dreaming experience. So let us go still further. What dreams do you have over and over again in which you take an active part? Do you ever dream that you are dreaming? And if so, what is that dream about? Can you find a locale or spot in your awakening hours which will induce you to recall that dream? That is, where are you in the physical body when you suddenly think of having been in a similar place in your dream? These are things which you must begin to notice. And if you can harmonize these conditions, try to act out that dream in your physical body, go over that route while thinking of the dream, and as you're doing so, tell yourself the next time you dream of reaching this spot, you're going to awaken, say, at this tree or at this doorway. Now, the dream may recur again soon, spontaneously, or even just by thinking about it. But as you enter sleep, you may produce it intentionally even. Now, if the dream actually were an astral somnambulistic dream, the suggestion that you will awaken at the given spot as you reach it in the astral body will be one of the strongest possible factors towards restoring complete astral body consciousness. That is a long, crazy method of saying. I will say this about Muldoon's text. There's a million easier ways to say what he's saying. The suggestion is not unlike the suggestion given to the subject in the hypnotic state to, quote, awaken. The operator says, I'll count to 5, and then you will awaken. Just like hypnotists say, when I count to 5, you will awaken. Be fully conscious, be fully aware, yada, yada, yada. Or, now walk straight ahead. When you get to that door, you will awaken. The dream gives this suggestion to the mind of the astral somnambulist who is in the dream state. And if you've located the spot or similar one where you were in the dream and go over this route in your physical body exactly as you recall the dream, and then tell yourself that when you get to this tree or this door or whatever, you will awaken. But this suggestion will be fulfilled as you walk up to the door or tree, etc., in the dream body. This is most certain a way of bringing consciousness to the projected phantom, even though it does involve a serious study of your dreams. Of course, once you can produce an aviation type of dream and remember it, the thing to do is to suggest to yourself, just before going to sleep, that you will awaken at a certain place. I have a friend who I gave these instructions, and he was quite successful in producing the proper dream. But when the suggestion to awaken should come forth, he would dream that he was dreaming, and he would just start to dream that he was dreaming, and the dream that he could not awaken from. Damn, that sounds crazy. Take, for example, the elevator dream. Tell yourself that after you have been lifted to the top floor of the building and have left the elevator and walked away from it, that you will then awaken. This is a simpler method, but not as effective as the complicated dream study method just given. Always use good judgment in suggesting the spot where you wish to awaken, making sure it's not too near the physical body, or you might awaken within cord activity range, which is to be avoided. Let us suppose for a moment that you sleep on the lower floor of your home, or on any floor, as long as there are other floors above you in your home. You have planned an elevator dream in which you will be carried upwards. Will upright yourself, walk out of the elevator, and walk around on the upper floor of the building. A good thing to know is the setting, or the way in which things really are arranged on the floor above you in the physical world, and mold your dream according to that. Find one object on the floor above you, a door, a window, something that will be in your path in the dream. And as you are holding the dream construction before you on going to sleep, suggest to yourself that you will awaken when you reach that object. Now, in this way, when you approach it in the dream body, the suggestion will actually happen. It will be fulfilled. The suggestion that you will become conscious upon reaching a certain place and your astral body will always be more effective than merely the suggestion that you will become conscious somewhere in the astral body. So suggestions of an actual place works in the same way in the astral as time does in the physical. Now, perhaps you've tried suggestion to replace the alarm clock, and by suggesting upon retiring that you will awaken at a certain hour, you've always been able to do that. That is the way in which place affects the astral body. Simply will that you awaken at a certain time. Use your will. That I'm going to awake at like 5 a.m. or whatever, 3 a.m. This is a certain place in the astral body, just as you will to awaken at a certain time in the physical body. Now, although the proper kind of dream, the aviation type, will seldom fail to pull out the dream body in practically all cases, the nervous temperamental person is so susceptible that he will often be projected spontaneously while asleep, while one temperament can have a dream, not necessarily of a flying type, but a regular dream, in which his dream body does not move out of the zone of quietude. The nervous type might have a similar dream, and his dream body would move out and enact the dream, actually. Nervous people get it better, man. They got it better, according to Muldoon. This is probably a chapter people need to read like 4 times, chapter 7, just to get it down. But in other words, while the aviation type of dream will usually pull out the dream body with all types of people, even an ordinary dream will often project the dream body and the nervous type. But when this occurs, one can never tell what the phantom will do. but its actions will always be found to sustain some relation to that dream. The phantom may be projected to the very spot which the subject is dreaming about. If the spot is a product of the imagination in the dream, the phantom may find a spot that is similar to that one which the mind created. The etheric phantom may finger about objects which are similar to objects seen in the dream. So as an example of this, recall the dream I had in which I was shooting Indians and become fully conscious in the dream body. Then I found myself standing near the spot where my shotgun was in my house. Now, you may dream of a lake or even of the ocean or hundreds of miles away, and if the dream body moves out to participate, it may be projected to the ocean, or it may only project to the pond just across the street from where you sleep. So, in other words, you could dream of the ocean. I have a pond that's right over there, and I could set it all up to where in that dream I'm going to that ocean or rising up and moving to the ocean. But if I wake up in my astral body or in my etheric double, I'll probably be by the pond or a body of water or a bathtub, I guess. That is one of the weirdest things. Like, there's so many things about this chapter that made so much sense to the experiences that I've had with astral projection, even lucid dreaming and the hypnagogic state and all the shit that's happened to me in between those worlds. It made a ton of sense, man. But good night. He has a way of explaining it that's a little confusing. So I may have to read this again. All right. So that ends our week of nightly broadcasts. I think if tonight's Thursday, I will usually try to put out some more content by the weekend, usually pre-recorded though, and stuff for the supporters. Please, if you can, support the show, right? There's a description of how to donate in the bottom there in the description, or you can grab stuff from the shop as well. And we'll see you guys next week. And I'll be in the after show chat too for the supporters as well for a little bit tonight. Don't know if I can explain this, but I've definitely got some stuff to talk about when it comes to this stuff, what he's talking about. Good night, you guys. I love you. Sweet dreams. Happy somnambulisms, whatever he calls it. Night night.